And there's really only one good reason to eat, and that's I'm hungry. Not it just tastes good. There's a strong connection between gut health, gastrointestinal health, and mental health. Mental health. Mental health. In this video, we're going to talk about the 10 best intermittent fasting tips for women over 50. Before we jump in, who am I to be talking about this? My name is Igor. I'm the author of the Amazon book called The No BS Guide to Intermittent Fasting for Women. As well, I've been running a personal training company since 2010 and myself have been a personal trainer since 2006. So let's get to it. Tip number 1 is to decide on your goal. What is the reason that you want to be doing intermittent fasting? Is it just because it's trendy and other people want to do it? Is it just because you enjoy skipping breakfast? Or is there a different reason for intermittent fasting? In other words, what is your health or fitness goal? Are you trying to lose body fat? Are you trying to gain muscle? Are you trying to reverse your diabetes or something else? Because that will impact how you do intermittent fasting and the other nutritional choices you make when you are intermittent fasting. So again, step 1 is to decide on your goal. Step 2, once you have your goal decided, you want to run it like an experiment. You want to decide on your goal and measure whatever it is that you're trying to improve. Is it your body fat? If so, measure your body fat. Are you trying to improve your muscle mass? If so, measure your muscle mass. Are you trying to improve your blood sugar? In which case, measure blood sugar levels, also known as your HbA1c or glycated hemoglobin. So run it like a science experiment. Decide on the goal, run a pretest. Do the experiment, which is intermittent fasting, for whatever period of time is deemed that is to gain a valid conclusion, and then run a post-test. So measure again. So for instance, let's use fat loss as an example. That's your goal. So you cover step 1. Step 2 is you measure your body fat. You go to a personal trainer to measure your body fat, etc. Then you do intermittent fasting for a period of anywhere from 1 to 3 months, and you measure your body fat again at the end of that period of time. If the experiment was successful, in other words, if you lost body fat, do more of that. If the experiment was unsuccessful, you have to change what you're doing. Usually it's not about the feeding window or the fasting window, it's usually about calories and protein. Let's use another example, blood sugar. So that's your goal, so you cover step 1. Step 2 is you measure your blood sugar levels. Better to use HbA1c because it's an average measurement of the last 3 months, as opposed to fasting blood glucose, which could be very different day to day. So use your HbA1c. For this one, you'll need to run it for 3 months and measure HbA1c again. And one more time, if the experiment was successful, if your blood sugar went down from a high range to a normal range, great. The experiment is successful, do more of what you were doing. If the experiment was not successful, change something. Whether that's changing the feeding window or better yet, changing one of the other variables that I talk about in my other book, Type 2 Diabetes Reversal Secrets. So step 2 again, my second tip, that is monitor your progress. And you can apply the same thing to any other goal you have. Tip number 3 is to find the right fasting, fasting window or fasting method. There are many variations of intermittent fasting out there. There is the classic 16-8. That is, you're fasting for 16 hours and then you're eating for 8 hours. There's another method, the 14-10, which is very similar to that. You fast for 14 hours, eat for 10 hours. There's another method called the 5-2 method, which is you don't restrict your window daily, you restrict it on a weekly basis. In other words, you eat whatever you want 5 days per week, and 2 days per week you fast. So there are many variations of intermittent fasting. The key is to find out the one that works for you. And how do you know it works for you? We'll talk about that later on this video when I talk about how to listen to your body. It's not just a vague concept of listen to your body. There are specific things you want to pay attention to, and we'll cover that at the end of the video. So stick around for that. But essentially it's about finding the right fasting window, and it's more of a logistical choice than as a nutritional choice. But again, we'll discuss that soon. Next step is to stay hydrated. If you're dehydrated, a lot of people confuse dehydration with hunger. And how do you know if it's dehydration or hunger? It's very simple. If you think you're hungry, drink some kind of fluid, whether that's water, tea, coffee, or something else, and then wait 15 minutes. If you still think you're hungry, well, that's probably true hunger. Go ahead and eat. But if your hunger went away 15 minutes after drinking a beverage, that probably wasn't real hunger. That was probably hunger masking thirst. So stay hydrated. That's the key. How much hydration is necessary? There's all kinds of formulas out there, all kinds of myths. There is the formula of you need half of your body weight in ounces. That's not correct. There's the formula of you need 8-ounce glasses per day of water or fluid, better yet. That's not correct either. There is a very simple test, and that is what I call the P test. If your urine is only very lightly yellow, you're well hydrated. If it's very, very deep yellow and you're not taking any medications or supplements, then you're severely dehydrated. However, if your urine is too clear, that's also a problem. You could be overhydrated. There are problems to dehydration and there are problems to overhydration. You want to have just the right level of hydration. As a rule of thumb, if you're thirsty and you drink, you're good to go. However, there is a difference between people who are under 50 and over 50. The thirst signals don't work as well in the over 50 crowd, so in that case, use the P method, which is, again, if your urine is lightly yellow, you're good. Another tip for intermittent fasting is to eat nutrient-dense foods. It's about eating the right number of calories, but also about eating foods that are rich in micronutrients as well. Not just the macronutrients of fat, carbohydrates, and protein, but the micronutrients as well. That is vitamins and minerals. See, our bodies don't just need macronutrients. They don't just need calories, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. They also need vitamins and minerals. And maybe you're getting the right amount of macronutrients. That is, you're getting the right amount of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. But if those foods are absent in the micronutrients, then you're going to keep craving food, that is calories, until you fill up on the micronutrients. So it's important to eat nutrient-dense foods and to eat whole foods. Whole foods contain more fiber, more protein on average than heavily processed foods. So it helps keep you fuller longer and be more in touch with your hunger and fullness signals. Another tip that goes along with that is to avoid sugary and processed foods. What's wrong with that? Well, sugar doesn't really have any magical properties outside of its calories. However, its magical properties are on the brain. In other words, it makes you want to eat more than just for hunger. It makes you want to eat for pleasure, okay? And there's really only one good reason to eat, and that's I'm hungry. Not it just tastes good. Sure, you should be eating food that tastes good to you, but with sugar, it kind of hijacks your hunger signals and makes you want to eat more than just for the sake of satiety, more than just for the sake of fullness. It hijacks the brain, essentially. Another tip that goes along with that is mindful eating, okay? This one is particularly important. Although you can eat almost anything, if you sit down, you enjoy it, you really pay attention to it, you savor it, even if it's a quote-unquote bad food, you'll get more out of it. It's going to register in your brain more than if you didn't pay attention to it. So lots of people, when they sit down to eat, they're scrolling through their phone, or they're watching TV, they're reading the newspaper, they're not paying attention to the food that's in front of them. But if you enjoy your food, if you really get pleasure out of your food, if you really savor it, it's going to register more in your brain. It's going to register as a separate event. In other words, you're not going through your day and you're eating while you're watching TV. You're watching TV while you're eating. Or better yet, you're just eating. It registers as a separate event. And that will also help you control your signals of hunger and fullness, your appetite. Another important tip on intermittent fasting is to prioritize sleep for regulating your hormones and appetite. That's exactly what it does, because when you don't sleep well, you have low energy levels. And you want to increase your energy levels. How do you do that? Well, very, very simple. By eating food. Food has energy. And it's not like you're going for spinach and broccoli. You're probably going for highly caffeinated, highly processed, highly sugared drinks and foods that are, again, more than just the value of their calories. You're getting the pleasure of that food, which is good, but you're getting more calories than you should because you're not in touch with your hunger and fullness signals due to the loss of sensitivity to those signals because of either poor sleep by choice or because you just can't fall asleep due to insomnia. The second last tip is to exercise regularly. Exercise can also help you regulate your mood, energy, and appetite, and is very, very important for eating behavior. There is even research out there saying that exercise has a positive impact on what they call the gut microbiome. That is the microbes that live inside primarily the large intestine and to a lesser extent the small intestine, and they also help you regulate things like mood, energy, appetite. There's a strong connection between gut health, gastrointestinal health, and mental health. So very important to exercise in addition to intermittent fasting. You can exercise whenever you want, either during your feeding windows or during your fasting windows, as long as you do it. One small caution: don't do heavy strength training in the first hour of the day. That's when the injury risk is the highest. Any other time of the day is fine, as long as it doesn't interfere with your sleep. If it does interfere with your sleep, just move it to earlier in the day, or reduce the intensity, or make any other kind of modification that allows you to exercise without raising your risk of injury, but also without causing insomnia or poor sleep. And tip number 10, listen to your body. Very often when we use this kind of language, it's so vague, it's so imprecise, but there are much better ways of doing it that add precision and you can understand more about your body. So how do I recommend my clients do it? The way I recommend they do it is they monitor between 5 and 15 of some very, very common symptoms. Things like fatigue, mood, energy, irritability, bowel movements, skin quality, joint pain, things like that. They would have a chart of those things, of those symptoms, and each day they would rate that on an hour-by-hour basis on a 0 to 10 scale. And they see how they are before they start intermittent fasting, and they see how they are, let's say, 1 to 3 months into it. If they've had improvements or no change in their symptoms, if they were low to begin with, great, this is a great thing for you. Now, if they're getting worse, then it's probably not the best thing for you. Intermittent fasting is a choice, it's not the only choice, and there are other choices. I want to emphasize that intermittent fasting is not a nutritional choice, it is a logistical choice. A lot of people make that logistical choice with the hopes of improving their nutritional choices. So it's a way, it's not the only way. If you like this video, click like and subscribe so that this video can reach other people just like you. I would greatly appreciate it. And thank you and goodbye.